Hey, how's it going? So let's do a quick video on which pricing tier is right for you with Sanity. I'm going to talk about free, growth, and enterprise, probably roughly about the same equal time. So let's start with free. First of all, free is probably the most generous free tier we've ever seen on anything, probably paired with Vercel. I think both of those are hand in hand for great free tiers. The one thing that you're probably going to miss out on with the free tier is the scheduling, which is called content releases, the comments and tasks, and the AI assist. Now, I personally really like the AI assist. Also, there is something that we'll talk a little bit about for those more technical people out there that are thinking of chatbots and AI. You also miss out on the embeddings index, which actually is very worthwhile. Just people don't know how to use it properly. But yeah, again, so free tier, very good. If you're a business that's coming into this, just do yourself a favor, pay the $15 a month per seat per month. But yeah, I'm going to show you that. So let's move on to the growth tier because the free tier is just essentially great, but with caveats. The growth tier is where you are really starting to get something good from it. So you get a lot more permission roles. So where a permission role actually comes into its own is the ability to say, this user can read this user can't read this user can publish. That's the idea of a permission role. Up to 50 user seats, that's a lot of users. But again, every single user is $15 a month. So if you're getting towards the top of those user seats, I would say that's probably a good time to go speak with Sanity about the enterprise group. And again, the two data sets, private or public. So now you're actually getting a private data set, which is useful because if you don't want to show people, for example, all the data from your actual database, that's really helpful. It's especially helpful when you have like a authenticated part of the website. That's where that really comes into its own. You do have pay as you go. So one thing that's really nice about this is you'll notice it's kind of like a whole ensemble of different bits and pieces that you can just keep chipping in and adding on to. And especially this is where we would kind of talk about the enterprise and when you should do it. My rule of thumb advice is if you choose a couple of these on the more expensive end, so for example SSO, and dedicated support. So dedicated support's a bit of an interesting one. If you haven't used it before as part of an enterprise or an enterprise plan, not all dedicated support is the same. Now, I swear by the dedicated support on Sanity side, and I swear by the dedicated support on Vercel's side. Both of those teams are absolutely phenomenal. So again, this is actually, in my opinion, a pretty good deal if you're looking to grow and you essentially don't want to get another developer, but you want somebody that is going to give you a very good kind of like, here's an example of this, here's an example of that. You want to take this example and utilize it. It probably cuts down on a good few days worth of development time. So depending on how much you're paying developers, it's probably valuable to get dedicated support. But again, this can all be added onto the growth plan. Rather than getting enterprise, but there is a certain point where you have like 2, maybe 3 big ticket items, and then that's the time that I would definitely get in touch at that point. Increased quota is very nice. If you want my honest opinion, you shouldn't really be hitting it unless you're like really killing it, like, you know, what's it called, Morning Brew or like BBC News or something like that. That's only the point of where you would probably get this add-on realistically. One thing to be aware of, people do set up Sanity projects wrong and do blow through quotas. So it is a thing that we've seen a lot of times with different clients. So definitely if you're suddenly blowing through the 500k, I think it is, quota, there's something pretty wrong. You probably want to get in touch with us or somebody else pretty quick. And again, seats availability, we can keep going up. There's a really nice effect, by the way, when you're looking through the pricing here. You can see this kind of cool cursor effect. It's nice. Nice touch, whoever built that. And especially when it transitions from like blue to orange. Very nice. But yeah. And again, the thing to pay attention to here, this is the bit that's kind of like a sleeper hit inside of this, is the API CDN requests. So again, 250k if you're using the API requests, or 1 million of them if you're on the API CDN requests. A lot of the times, depending on what you actually need and depending on how fast you need it, a lot of the times the API CDN request will be more than enough for what you need. So if you are finding you're getting close to the overages on 250k, it's a pretty smart move to swap to the API CDN requests. That's something we've done a couple of times as well. One thing to pay attention to as well that not everybody knows what this is. This is the live content connections, or the live content API connections. What it means is if there is 1,000 people on the same page at once and you update the data, the 1,000 people within this will see that without it actually refreshing. So instead of having to refresh the page and see the update, if you have a lot of people, say for example, like Louis Vuitton's releasing a new bag or whatever, right? Everybody's piling into the website. There's 10,000 people on the website, and somebody changes the stock from in stock to out of stock. 1,000 of those people will get that update and see the page just go from normal stock to out of stock. But the other remaining 9,000 will not see it unless they refresh the page. The first 1,000 will obviously see the page just update like that. It's pretty cool if you haven't seen it. So again, we'll talk more about this live content API because I think it's the most important thing Sanity offers, but it's the most boring sounding offering there is. If you don't know what it actually does, it's really, really powerful. And again, all the free hosting. So one thing that I would always recommend, and we'll talk more about this at a later date, always go for a mono repo. So when we say free hosting, we always recommend running Sanity through, roboto.sanity.studio rather than robotostudio.com/CMS or something along those lines, because the performance isn't perfect in my opinion. It's quite slowish in comparison to actually just hosting it straight through Sanity and just hands off, don't need to think about it, works beautifully. Same principle here. So live preview, visual editing, you just get this on every single one, which is helpful. But the real interesting stuff comes from the AI assist. So I'll tell you where AI assist comes in handy. One of the perfect examples of it is if you have an internationalized website and you have an English page and you have a German page. Now, I can't speak German very well, but I would very, very much like it if an AI could come across and do the best first draft imaginable from the English version. And that's exactly what Sanity AI Assist can actually do. So it can do generations of like translations. We also use it internally at the moment to do our FAQs. So when we write a blog, you always get to the FAQ section at the bottom, which is very, very important for like SEO and things like that. And I've already got a giant blog full of content. Why don't I just generate the FAQs? And so you can use the AI Assist to do that. There's lots of like tiny little time savers, which kind of add up to a much better editorial experience. And that's what we focus on. But yeah, that's one of them. And again, these review changes, so you can see it's got a 90-day retention on the review changes of drafts. And yeah, essentially, when you start getting down to this area, this is very, very enterprise. So all the stuff that you expect from enterprise. And this one's kind of cool at the moment. So if you haven't seen this one before, functions invocations is the new Sanity functions functionality. And so essentially what that does is in our case, we actually use this for creating redirects. So for example, you make a change to a page, you change the URL from page A to page B. What would happen in the traditional sense is people would go to page A and obviously the page is moved. So you want to have a redirect from page A to page B. Now, if you change the name from page B to page C, you're going to want a redirect from page A, page B to page C. That's all possible with functions. And again, these function invocations are very, very generous. We don't hit anywhere near the 500K mark unless obviously you set something up incorrectly by accident. And it does happen to the best of us. And one of the things that's worth noting is this difference between media browser plugins and media library plugins. So this media library is very focused on like a multi-website or a multi-app setup. So for example, if you have a set of images, again, going back to one of the examples like Morning Brew, you have images that you want to share between your website, your web app, your application, maybe an email campaign, all of those things combined from the same Sanity media library. That's what this is. This is a great way of handling content between all of those different disparate systems. But again, it is an enterprise add-on. And again, the open source editor built with React, all this stuff is awesome. You get it on every single package. And the image pipelines are fantastic. So we use them a lot to be able to deliver things. The main reason why you would actually want the image pipeline is because you don't want to have to spend a bunch of time going, oh, I've just uploaded a 3 megabyte PNG. I need to go to that optimization tool, optimize the 3 megabyte PNG, put it back in here, re-upload it as a, like a WebP or an AVIF file, and then hopefully it all works. No, you don't want to do any of that. You just want to upload the image, add its source value, and then just get all the automation and get all of those optimized images just by default. That's what you can do with this, and it's very, very impressive. And again, these are all the security and compliance stuff at the bottom. So this is a complete snooze fest, but InfoSec people will be frothing at the mouth over this stuff. So make sure you've got everything correct in here. This is mostly for your enterprise again, and all these different things at the bottom again, all enterprise. But there is a hell of a lot that's already in the growth plan and the free plan. So I hope that helps. And if you have any particular questions about anything that's on this pricing list, we have a ton of experience in using all of it. So feel free to ping me, drop a comment below, and I'll try and get back as fast as possible. Thanks for listening and take care. Bye.